Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a death singing cleric wizard in Baldur's Gate 3, multi-classing the death domain cleric alongside the blade singing wizard. There's actually quite a bit of synergy here because we're able to learn spells like Circle of Death and Blight, and it'll ignore resistances to necrotic damage. We also get Spirit Guardians for running around, 2 attacks. There's actually quite a bit of synergy here, and I can't wait to break this all down. Now, I'd recommend actually starting with the Cleric, because the Cleric actually has a solid start with the Death Domain Cleric, because what you can do is Reaper. It gives you the Necromancy cantrips, the ability to target an additional creature. So with this, we're going to take Bone Chill for that cantrip, and then that frees us up to be able to take the Toll of the Dead and the Bursting Sinew, which are all in the Necromancy cantrips. Also Sacred Flame, because there's some creatures that are immune to necrotic, and that means they likely will take double damage from Radiant. So we're going to roll with that. And for our ability scores, this is where it gets a little dicey. Luckily for us, there's 2 stats that we can actually dump. Going with 14 dexterity is nice, because if we were going to wear medium armor at the start of the game, we also can use light armor, but this gives a +2 to the armor class, so that's typically the most that you're going to get early game, so that can work well. You could also dump dexterity and take the dexterity gauntlets, or we could dump constitution and take the constitution amulet in the late game. That's likely the best way to go about doing this. So otherwise, we would go with stats like this. This is going to be the starting stat spread that we'll use. Otherwise, we can dump Constitution or Dexterity. I know some people don't like to do that. That's why I want to provide the ability scores at the start here. But otherwise, we'd go with 16 Wisdom, 16 Intelligence, and 14 Dexterity, with our Constitution being covered by the Amulet. At level 2, this is where we get the Touch of Death, which is huge because we can get an extra attack, and this stacks off of our melee attacks. You can use Channel Divinity to deal additional necrotic damage. And what's nice is we can actually use this on Inflict Wounds. So early game, the Death Cleric can use Inflict Wounds to stack that up. Now, I'd recommend, again, having Guiding Bolt for those that are going to be immune to a necrotic damage. I also like Sanctuary. Create Water is good if you have a team that's going to revolve around that. Like if you have Storm Sorcerers, you can use that to set up double damage. But if not, you can go with something like this, as Bless is a really powerful spell, and Command is also quite nice too. You could also swap out Sanctuary for Healing Word though, or the Cure Wounds, but this is nice for picking up down to allies in the early games. Anyone goes down, pop them back up with a heal. Now at level 3, we get ourselves the Ray of Enfeeblement and the Blindness spells, but we get some very powerful things like Spiritual Weapon and Hold Person. So we're going to roll with the Spiritual Weapon there, as that's really nice to have. Into level 4 here, we get ourselves another choice in cantrips. You can take Guidance, and for our prepared spell, Hold Person is extremely useful early through to the mid game, so we can roll with this, and then later on we can swap it out for the wizard based one. Now early game, we'd bump up our wisdom to 18, but I actually think it's best to bump up our intelligence if you're respecking later on in the game. Normally you'd take the wisdom up to 18 for better spellcasting until we add that in, and then add in the intelligence for the wizard. We're just going to take that here now because the intelligence based casting is going to have our most powerful spells. At level 8, this is when we get the ever powerful Spirit Guardians, which is going to give us necrotic damage that ignores resistance, or radiant damage if we so choose. And we also get some more fun spells like the Glyph of Warding and the Mass Healing Word spells. If you find that you're not using Inflict Wounds, you can take it off at this point and then take like Mass Healing Word. That's a good spell to have for keeping people alive. And even Glyph of Warding can be a good one too to go with, so either of those. At level 6, this is a big feature. We get the Inescapable Destruction, ignoring resistance to necrotic damage. This will actually carry over for our wizard spells, and we can learn things like Circle of Death, a level 6 necrotic based spell, and it's going to ignore all resistances, so that's really nice. At this level, we can take our Mass Healing Word, or we can go to some of the previous spells. We can even take back Sanctuary, and we can remove Hold Person and take it from the wizard as well if you'd like, if we want to use our intelligence for casting it. Entirely your choice what you want to do, but it's going to have a higher chance of hitting that way. Into level 7, this is when we're going to actually add in the Bladesinging Wizard. And Blight we can learn here, but we could always learn Blight from a scroll. So we'll add in the wizard here, and we're going to take Booming Blade. This is extremely effective to have. And then Shocking Grasp is not bad, but also having Mage Hand or Minor Illusion can be good too. For the spells that we'll be taking, if you wanted to wear clothing, we could go with the Mage Armor. That is a choice. However, we can also just go with Shield, Thunder Wave, Magic Missile, Long Strider for the increased movement speed is also quite nice. I might just keep Mage Armor there just for the survivability aspect. Grease and Fine Familiar. Chromatic Orb being another decent choice you can go with. And we can prepare 5 of these because we had our Intelligence modifier boosted up already. Into level 6 or level 8 here, level 2 wizard, we're going to take the Bladesinging Wizard. This gives us the Blade Song, which adds our proficiency bonus to armor class and increases our movement speed, and gives a proficiency bonus to Constitution saving throw. So we'll eventually get a +3 to that, which is really nice. And for the spells, we'll be selecting on next level, Long Strider and Chromatic Orb. And for the Bladesinging weapon, this is your choice. I like the rapier choices. Early game, longsword works well with the Fowler Alluve weapon, so you could go with that. Alternatively, whatever longsword you're able to find. At level 3, we get ourselves level 2 spells at this time. And it's hard not to take Shadow Blade with how powerful it is in Baldur's Gate 3. But we can also go with like Scorching Ray and Misty Step for some extra mobility and extra damage. And then we'll prepare Misty Step there. Maybe even Scorching Ray, just the extra choice of attack. At level 4, we get another cantrip here, so we'll take Firebolt to explode things. And I guess now we'll take Shadow Blade. It's hard not to. Mirror Image for a +9 armor class is also a good choice. Clouded Daggers doesn't have a check, so you can go with that. But a lot of these spells we won't be actually using because we can prepare them and learn them from scrolls. So we're going to learn Shadow Blade, and we're going to boost up our intelligence to the max 20 for +5 to our spell save DC and spell attack rolls. At level 5, Lightning Bolt and Fireball, 2 really good spells. We already have Vampiric Touch, which is kind of nice if you wanted to use that spell. And then we'll prepare both of these because we got a lot of spells. We got level 6 spell slot. And finally, we get our extra attack, and we get to choose 2 more spells. Counterspell being a massive one because we can't learn that from a scroll. And Haste is also really nice because we can't learn that from a scroll. And then for prepared spells, we'll throw Counterspell into the mix. We're going to move around some of these as we learn them from our scrolls. So for spells that we'd like to learn, Circle of Death is a definite choice that we can go with. Because when we learn this spell, we ignore resistances to it. I also like the Cone of Cold. Ice Storm can be a nice spell to have. If you want to like Disintegrate or Cloud Kill. Cloud Kill more so if you have more enemy dead around because they don't get hit by poison damage. But I think with these spells here, we're pretty solid. So we can bump off some of the spells we're not using as much and put on the Circle of Death there. And you can see ignores resistances, which is super useful. And then we'll also take off maybe our... Now, as for gear, one of the best items for this is the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. Since we're going to be doing melee attacks, this will give us a boost to our spell save DC and spell attack rolls upwards of a +10. At base, we got ourselves a 18 on the Wizard and a 16 on the Cleric. So this can be boosted up to 26 and 28 respectively, which is actually pretty strong. And if you don't want to go with this, you could also go with like a early game. You could add in the Warped Headband of Intelligence and then dump Intelligence alternatively. Or the Hood of the Weave to give yourselves a +2 to your spell save DC, but this can give us a +10, so it's a little bit better. I also like the Cloak Protection for better armor class, the Ballast Armor, which can work alongside the Duelist Prerogative, as this is piercing damage. And on top of this, this will give us the ability to do necrotic damage on attacks, which ignores resistance. Cool. And it gives us an extra bonus action, or an extra reaction, and that can be used for counterspell. So we can counterspell twice per turn with this weapon. And it gives us increased critical hit chance too, since we're not wearing or using anything in the offhand. If you wanted to use something, you could go with Shadow Blade and Dolar Amaris in the offhand. That's another good option because this will give us a +7 in critical hit damage, which is really nice. But this is going to be really useful for the extra reaction that we get from it. The Helldust Gloves will give us a better spell save as well. Although you could go with the Gloves of Dexterity, as I mentioned. If you want to use an offhand weapon, you can go with the Gloves of the Balanced Hand. And the Gloves of Belligerent Skies, also a good choice too. And even like the Gemini Gloves, if you got those, are also quite useful. The Bracer to Defense, nice too, if you use clothing and use Mage Armor, because this will give you a +2 to armor class if you're not wearing a shield or wearing armor. We're wearing the Helmet of Arcane Acuity and the Ballast Armor, which doubles the damage of piercing attacks. If you don't got the Ballast Armor, that's okay. You could also use like the Robe of the Weave and use Mage Armor to stack that up even higher. That's another choice you can go with. Or really any clothing based option, because that will give us an extra bonus to our armor class and survivability. The base of shoes for more survivability as well, and the Hellrider Longbow for the +3 to initiative. Ring of Protection and Killer Sweetheart. However, the Cryptlord Ring fits perfectly thematically because this gives us the Create Undead spell, which is very useful to have. We could also go with the Strange Conduit Ring as well, which gives us an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage when concentrating on a spell. Shadow Cloak Ring if we wanted to use the Shadow Blade a little bit more, but we're not going to use it for the purpose of this build. Crusher's Ring too for the +3 to movement speed is also quite nice. So there's a couple different options there we can go with. And again, critical hit is never a bad thing, but the Create Undead is also nice. And the Amulet of Greater Health, as I mentioned, we need a dump stat, so it's going to be our Constitution. So what this will look like in combat. Always remember to dye your armor for theming purposes. So the first thing we're going to do every time we get into combat is put on our Blade Song, which will give us a boost to our armor class and for our Constitution saving throws. This puts our armor class up to 24, which is not too bad. We also have haste applied to show off this build a little more easily. Now we can see there's a large group of enemies there. We can't actually get in to do a Cone of Cold without eating an opportunity attack. So I'm going to do what's smart, and we're going to drop a wall, or we're going to drop an ice storm here, trying to hit as many targets as possible, because this can make them slip and fall. And it's also going to take out a bunch of them and break some concentrations. Now we got ourselves a problem in front of us, so we're going to use Booming Blade here to take care of this. And if it doesn't finish them off, we got the Touch of Death. It's going to finish them off, though. Yeah, you can see a lot of damage. We don't have to use the Withering Cut. We don't have to use the Touch of Death. We've got lots of options for additional damage on here. So next we can move over here. I might be able to attack them without slipping on ice, and I'm just going to go ahead with just a regular old main hand attack. We also got our Duelist Enthusiasm, though, if this doesn't finish them off. So boom, that was enough to finish them off, so that was perfect. And then the water is there. We got rid of the ice, unfortunately. And then for our bonus action, we can go with the Duelist Enthusiasm here to give ourselves another attack, which is quite nice. So boom, and Withering Cut can do additional damage if you want to use your reaction. I shouldn't have done that, but I just want to show it off. The reason we want to have that extra reaction is Counterspell and things like Psionic Dominance are extremely useful for keeping us from getting hit with command and hold person, so we want that. It's not often you get a perfect circle of death off, but you can see there we're going to hit a ton of targets with this, so we may as well do it, as we got a +7 to Arcane Acuity, and that's going to give us a really good chance of landing this on as many targets as possible. And this fits that death singing concept. Yeah, it took out a lot of targets. It added some more because we took out civilians, unfortunately, but yeah, I guess I should have also set up Spirit Guardians a little bit earlier, because that's a really good concentration to have, and we can go with the necrotic version of it just because that's going to give us a lot of extra damage, and then we can just move around to potentially take out targets using it. So that's one of the nice things about Spirit Guardians, is that sometimes just you go around as a Beyblade ripping them apart just like that, and yeah, that's 5 easy KOs just like that. It's a wonderful, wonderful spell. So yeah, you can even have one of your characters pick them up and run with them. If you have a giant barbarian, you can have them pick up and run around with them. Unfortunately, we broke concentration. And we're surrounded, but we got our Duelist Enthusiasm, so we can keep our action here. So boom, bonus action attack. And that wasn't enough to take him out, so we can use the Touch of Death there to finish him off. That was quite nice execution there. And I guess popping up our Spirit Guardians again, try not to break my concentration. Unfortunately, it got Counterspell. So I managed to get my haste back up, and we want to have this Spirit Guardians up at all times just because it's really nice to be able to run around and just damage targets just like this here. And if you just stay slightly out of the range, you can also just run around and apply it to as many targets as possible, and sometimes you'll get lucky with taking them out. Then we can go ahead with our, again, Booming Blade combo. So boom, that was enough to finish them off. We don't use our Withering Cut there. That's a bonus from the sword, by the way, the Withering Cut, if you're wondering what that is. And we got one more to take out right there. That's perfect. And we already used our concentration. I guess we do a ranged attack if we want to. Or the Bladesong Climax, which we can use as a bonus action ability. Boom, we can fly through the sky, and that finishes them off. There it is. So that is the Death Singing Death Domain Cleric multiclass, the Bladesinging Wizard in Baldur's Gate 3. If this video is useful, leave a comment below. Tell me your favorite thing about it. Let me know what kind of build you want to see next in Baldur's Gate 3's Patch 8. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one.